everybody, this is Michelle with Creative Operation and Country Craft Creations, and I have a tutorial for you today. So, I have recently been going to town on making rosettes, and I decided, after asking all of my crafty peeps in the Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations Facebook group, which if you're not a member of, you really should go check it out. Go to countrycraftcreations.com. I'll leave a link down below, and if you're interested, join up with our Facebook group. You will get all the information on all the free tutorials that we offer. You'll get all the information on all the products they have at the store, and it's retreats, you name it. I mean, it's a fantastic group. But anyway, I had some questions, and so then I asked the gals if they would like a kind of a one-on-one rosette tutorial, and I got a lot of responses that yes, they would. So here's what I thought I would do. So first off, what I'm going to do is show you what rosettes I have made in the past, and some of them you've seen more recently. And then we're going to dive into a tutorial, and I'm going to talk about making them, how to make them, how to score them, how to figure out sizes, all that stuff. So we're just kind of going to go through the basics, I guess, and get this done. So these are a variety here of what I have made in the past and how I've used them. And they're really fun. And most of these have tutorials. I don't think this one doesn't have a tutorial yet, but I will absolutely do. Actually, I could do this card in this video, and we'll just do that too. But anyway, I will link all the tutorials down below. These are mostly my Country Craft Creations projects, and they're really good. And then after I talk about these, we'll go on a field trip. I'll show you the absolute biggest one I've ever made. My husband still hangs it in his man cave, and it's really quite cool, if I do say so myself. I made it for his birthday, so it's really fun, but it's huge. So I couldn't fit it on my desk, so that's why we have to go on a field trip. So I'm going to share that with you. Okay, so let's start with this one. So this one I made as part of a banner project that I made using Country Craft Creations Midnight Kiss paper collection. And I used it just as a decorative element. It has 1/2-inch gussets scores. And I think the total width to this was like 3 3/4 inches wide. And I used just some beautiful papers and created this really nice banner. And the reason why it has these ties here that aren't tied to anything is because it was an idea that I had of making a banner that you could tie to like those wooden garlands, and then you could untie it, and then you could add, you know, banner pieces like throughout the year. So you didn't really have to take down the wooden garland part. You could just add the pennants to it. And so I used it in this capacity. It turned out really cool. So again, all of these tutorials that I've already done will be linked below if you want to go see what I did and how I did it. But I just wanted to share some of the things. So there's one thing that I made. This here is my most recent one that I made, and these I were playing with papers that I had left over from my past Country Craft Creations design team packages. This was an authentic paper collection called Hooray, and these rosettes were actually made with the packaging that came with it, the cover paper that came with the collection, because I had like very little left over. These rosettes, I used buttons, and these buttons actually have shanks on them, and I'll show you how to use those with your rosettes. One of them I did pop up with some foam tape to kind of elevate it above these two, and I just made balloons out of it, and I thought those were really pretty. These were quite small. The strips in the paper collection were not that, or in the, you know, cover paper wasn't that big. So this one only measures about 1.5 inches wide. So these were around 3/4 inch wide strips that I did. And I did these with 1/4 inch scores. Okay, so there's a card that I made. This one here, this is what started my most recent rosette craze. This was a printable that I had, and I had a bunch of these strips that I wasn't sure what to do with, and then I decided to make rosettes with them. And so this one here, instead of using a button in the middle, I used a flower because it was like sunflowers and daisy paper and stuff. So I just used this flower in the middle of it. And then I made this card, this origami window card. It's been around forever, but I just thought it would be a real pretty centerpiece to that card. These papers here, the yellow with the white flowers, are from an old design team package paper collection. I had some scraps boho baby that I had used, and I just made a real simple greeting card with that. So there's another way you can use these. They're just so much fun. Now this one here is a rosette that I made as a wall hanging, and again, this was a past design team project that I did. This was Graphic 45's Life's a Journey paper collection, and I used the paper and I made a giant rosette here, and you can see it is quite wide, and this thing is, I think the total width is 12 inches. And so I did the rosette under here. I layered some stuff that I had cut with my silhouette, and then I made 3 smaller rosettes here that I stacked together. It just turned out really beautiful. So I have that. This hangs in my craft room. I just love this, and I love the bright colors, and I just love how it is. But you can make these as big, you know, really, or as small as you want. So that was one project that I can actually fit this one on my desk. It's not that big. The one that I'm going to show you is that big. So then I'm going to save this one for last. This one here was one of my Christmas projects that I made, and I made a stuffed album, basically a riff on the stuffed envelope thing, and I have been wanting to do this. It is quite thick because I really stuffed it full of everything I could possibly think of, but when we're talking about rosettes, so I glued this one onto a snowflake that I got from Hobby Lobby, I think. I don't know. It could have been somewhere else, but I put a rosette on here, and it makes a beautiful Christmas ornament. I just layered stuff on top of it. Isn't that gorgeous? It just turns out really pretty. So I used rosettes in this project in 2 ways. I made the ornament, and then I also made this cute little wand. So I backed it on paper back here, put a straw in there in one of the grooves, and then layered it with a pretty little glitter snowflake and a rhinestone. Just made a really pretty wand for my stuffed mini album here. Okay. Then I had learned how to make this fun rosette, which actually has a sunken center, and then it also has these sides. Now you'll notice on my other rosettes, let me grab one that's easy to see. On my other rosettes, they have simple edges, so they're open on the ends. This one here is actually closed. So I just recently did this book and showed how to make this rosette, but we'll do that again too because it's one of the variations. And then the other rosette that I'm going to show you, and I don't have a picture of it, or not a picture, I don't have the example of it right now because I did give that book as a gift, but in one of my Love is in the Air projects for Country Craft Creations, I made heart-shaped rosettes, and we're going to make one of those too, so I'll show you how to do that. So those are kind of the rosettes that I have been working on and working with. All these beautiful, beautiful sizes. You can make them any size you want. You can do all kinds of pretty decorative things with them. You can make cards with them. Rosettes are super fun. They're a great stash buster because, you know, you're just using strips of paper. So all of those leftovers from your projects, you can make these. And let me show you something else. I have been going so bananas with making rosettes lately, which is what started this whole video, that now I have a whole bucket full of them that I can, you know, they're ready to go, and I can go ahead and just do whatever. This one here are tickets from a ticket roll that I found at Goodwill, and I got it for cheap. And I just ripped off a strip of tickets, and I made, you know, rosettes out of those, and I thought they turned out really cool. And you can decorate them any way you want. You can put buttons, you can do twine, you can do flat back pearls, you can do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I have a whole bunch of rosettes that I can play with. It's full. Okay, so let's go on a field trip now, and I'll show you the absolute biggest rosette I've ever made, and then we'll get going on a tutorial. Okay, so we're on a little field trip here because I wanted to share with you this rosette. It's absolutely ginormous, and you can tell it's on a door. This is one that I made for my husband a while ago, and it was for his birthday. And so I did this giant one that I wanted, you know, him to notice. And anyway, he hangs it in his man cave, and right now he let me borrow it so I could show it to you. But this one is big. This one used strips that were 12 inches wide by 8 inches tall, and I used 6 of those all together. So I scored them on the 12-inch side at 1/2 inch, and you know, all the way across, and then I connected all of those strips together to make it this big. So the inner circle there, you can tell it's cut out of a 12 by 12 piece of paper. And then I put a picture of my husband in there. I'll zoom in here in a second. But I just wanted to share with you, I mean, you can make these huge. You can make them absolutely huge. The bigger you want them, the more, you know, the wider the paper you have to have, you know, and then you also have to have more pieces. So you need to do that so that you can have it, you know, have some dimension. Okay. So anyways, on this one here, I made fake birthday candles with rolled up paper and some twine hanging out of them. And then I added some ribbons and, you know, just some fun stuff. And I put this rock star on there because, you know, he's in a band and everything. And this was a picture. We went to Pittock Mansion here in Portland, Oregon. And it was a motorcycle ride for his birthday. And that's where I got that picture from. So we were having a great day with that. But you can see how cool that turned out, and he loves it, and he still hangs it in his man cave. So I just wanted to share with you that one. That's the biggest one I've ever made. So again, those strips were 12 inches wide and 8 inches tall, and I used 6 of those strips together to make this big rosette. All right, so let's get back to my craft room. Okay, so we're going to go through some examples of the rosettes and different sizing options that you have, and kind of some examples of what to look for and what to think about when you're making a rosette. So I spent a lot of time making all these examples, and we're going to talk about these in just a sec, all the different kind of sizes. So we're going to talk about strip width. So when we do a strip of paper, for a rosette. So all of my pieces are 12 inches long. And then the width is the different sizing, and that's what makes your rosette, okay? So when you're looking at your rosettes, if you want, for example, a 1-inch wide rosette, you will cut a strip that's 1/2 inch wide. Because when we fold it and we make the circles, it will basically double the size. I hope that makes sense. So for example, this was a 1/2 inch strip, and once you make the circle, it will make a rosette that's roughly 1 inch across in diameter. Okay, so what I did, we'll start off with these. These are strips that are 1/2 inch wide up to 1 3/4 inch wide. I used 1/4 inch scores, and they're only one strip of 12 inch long paper. Okay, so for example, this one here, I used a strip that was 12 inches long, but it's only a 1/2 inch wide, and it gave me a 1 inch across rosette. Okay, this one here is a 3/4 inch strip, so then that's about 1.5 inches wide. This is a 1 inch strip, and it's about 2 inches wide. Okay, so what I wanted to share with you is that they're all scored the same. So they're all scored with 1/4 inches, but you can see the smaller the rosette, the more dense the actual, you know, pleating is, or the rosette is. Okay, so this one here is the most dense, so it has the most ridges on there, and so on. So you can see how the different graduated sizes, you know, do change the look of your rosette. Okay, now when you go graduating up in size, you can see, like for the example, this one here, it's starting to get pretty flat. Because we're still using that 12 inch strip, and it's going to flatten out the bigger the strip is that you're going to use. So this one here is a 1.5 inch strip. So when you put it into the circle shape, it will be about a 3 inch rosette. Okay, and it's still, you know, fairly dimensional and has nice pleating and everything, and it looks really, really good. When you get up to 1 3/4 inches, that's where you're going to get really, really flat, and it's going to be really, you know, hard to make the circle. So that is something to think about when you're getting up to like a 1 3/4 inch or more strip. That's when you're going to have to start thinking about using 2 strips. okay, and putting them together so that you can get more dimension and more pleating out of your rosette. So, for example, let's talk. So these are all using only one strip. And then what I did was I took a 1 3/4 inch strip, just like this one, and a 2-inch strip, still use the same 1/4 inch scores, but I attached 2 strips together. So you can see these are the same. These are 1 3/4 inches, but I attached 2 strips together. It makes it a little bit bigger because there's more paper to kind of put in the circle, but you can see that the dimension is much better. So that is something to think about. So usually if I'm going to go more than, you know, 1.5 inches or so, then, you know, when we're pushing 1 3/4 inches and up, I usually will use 2 strips of paper to put them together. Okay, so these are all 1 strip, and then these are the examples of the 2 strips put together. Same scoring. This is 1 3/4 inch strips. This is 2-inch strips. So you can see how much better the rosettes actually turn out. So I wanted to share that with you. So those are the examples of the 1/4 inch strips here, and I'll just kind of put that here and put this here, and then let's talk about the next size up. So this is 1/4 inch. These here are going to be, the next ones I'm going to show you, let me just get that off to the side here, are going to be 3/8 inch scores. Okay, so when we're doing that, so I went ahead and made more strips. And these again are 1/2 inch wide by 12, okay, all the way up to 1 3/4 inch wide by 12, but I scored them at 3/8, okay. So you can see the different look that you can get. So for example, this is the 1/2 inch with the 3/8 inch score. This is the 1/2 inch with the 1/4 inch score. So it's taller, it's a little less dense, but it does have more dimension. So, you know, when you're doing projects, you can actually mix and match different sizes too. It'll still be about 1 inch wide. It'll just be taller, and it'll have a little bit less dense. Okay, so again, this one here in my right hand is 1/4 inch scores. This one is 3/8 inch. So here is the strip with the 1/2 inch. This is 3/4. This is the 1, 1 1/4, 1 1/2, and 1 3/4. And again, note that if once you get to about 1 3/4 inch wide strips, it starts to really flatten out. So then what I ended up doing was I did the same thing with 1/2 inch, 1 3/4, and 2 inch, but I added 2 strips together. So it bulks them up, okay? So it makes them way more dimensional, okay? It's still 3/8 of an inch, but you can see the difference. So for example, like this one here, this is a 2-inch, 2-inch wide strips, and I put 2 together, makes it really nice. This one is 1 3/4, or excuse me, this one is 1 3/4, and this is 1 1/2. So let's compare them to these 2 here that I made, and you can see I got off center there a little bit, but this one here, these are the 1 1/2 inch strips, and you can see if you add 1 more strip of paper to that, how much nicer it makes it. And I mean, this one's really, really nice, and I would still probably use that because it still has a lot of dimension. But like, for example, this one's getting really flat on the end, and it's not terrible, but it does kind of pull at the scores. So it makes it really flat. But if you add 1 more strip, then you get one that's, you know, just a little bit prettier. So anyway, did that. So these are the 3/8 inch pieces here. And let's move those off to the side. I did a few more. So here is 1/2 inch. So I usually don't go over 1/2 inch scores on my rosettes. These are, you know, these start to get pretty bulky, and depending on the project that you're making, okay? But again, you can compare, like this is a 1/4 inch scoring with a 1/2 inch strip. This is the 3/8, And then this one here is the 1/2 inch. So you can, you know, obviously they're going to be thicker, but you can see the different look as well. So 1/4 inch will give you a more full rosette. 3/8, you know, it gives you still a really nice rosette. And then the 1/2 inch, it's a little bit less full. That makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So again, I did 1/2 inches here. And these are all just one 12-inch strip of paper. And you can see here the 3/4 inch, it's really flat and it was really hard to do. So then I did attach 2 strips together, and I made one that's 1.5 inch strips, 1 3/4, and 2. Okay, so the moral of the story is, once you get past, you know, like 1.5 inches, then you might need to start thinking about putting 2 strips together. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Okay, so we're going to go through kind of some scoring and things, and we'll put some together. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So please just note, I usually, well, it depends on the project. I usually, if I'm doing something more on a scrapbook page or maybe a card, I'll do 1/4 inch. If you're doing some sort of a project where it's going to be like on a wall, for example, like a wall hanging like I showed you before, I'll use a 1/2 inch. So it just gives you the more bulk. But you can, you know, mix and match your pretties and, you know, get a lot of dimension out of them. So that's kind of the moral of the story. So 12-inch strips, using one of those. Once you get past the width of 1.5 or 1 3/4, you might want to start thinking about 2 strips together. And that goes for all of the different scoring. It's pretty much kind of a standard thing. So let me get this out of the way. And then let's make some basic rosettes, and then we'll get into some more fancy ones. Now, when scoring your rosettes, now there's 2 different things that you can do. If you're only making one, then you can cut off your strip here. So let's just do like maybe an inch strip to start and go from there. Okay, so when you're scoring, I really think that scoring these so that the scores actually go in the proper direction is important, because they fold better depending on the paper you're using, less tearing, less ripping. So I think this is really important. So for this example, you're doing one strip. We've got it 1 inch wide. It's 12 inches long. And let's just go with 1/2 inch just to make it easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the 1/2 inch. And then, you know, your natural tendency is to want to go to 1. Don't do that. Go to 1.5. So skip that 1/2, because what we're going to do is score this all the way down. So at 2.5, 3.5, you're going to score on all of the halves. Okay. And then what we're going to do is turn it over and score it again. When you do this, all your little mountain and valleys go in the direction that you really want them to go. So you're going to have an easier time folding them, and you're going to have an easier time with less tearing. Okay, so then just flip it over, and then in between those score lines, we're going to start at 1, and then you're going to go at 2, 3, 4, and so on. And then you're going to end up with your score lines going the proper direction at the 1/2 inch marks, and then we can do our rosette. All right, so we have that. Let me get this out of the way for just a sec. We have that done. We have our glue gun ready to go. You can use art glitter glue, but you're going to have to hold it longer. So for this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and use my glue gun because it'll be a little bit faster. And then you're going to also need some type of pieces to attach to your rosette. So usually what I do is I punch circles. Smaller ones, I use my 5/8 inch circle punch, and then for the larger ones, I just use 1 inch, or if it's bigger, then obviously I'd get a bigger one, a bigger circle. But for all of these, I did 1 inch circles, and it worked just fine. So then we got to fold. So your scoring here, the valley, as they say, becomes the mountain. So you just start by doing that, and then you just fold your piece like so. Okay. Now sometimes, depending on the size of my strip, sometimes I'll put it on the table and do this. And I just do kind of a gentle fold to start. And then what I end up doing is I lay it on the table. And before I just kind of play with it and then squish it down. Okay. So you end up with the piece like that. Okay. All of your scores, all of your valleys and mountains are doing what they're supposed to be doing. Then what you need to do is you need to attach this. And what I tend to do is just kind of do it so that my two strips go like that. Okay. Does that make sense? So I just put that right on top and glue that down. Now for this, we can go ahead and use our glitter glue. If I can get it out of my tip there. And then just lay that down. And then squish that together. And that will attach your strip nicely. Okay, so then you'll end up with a circle. That looks like, I didn't do that very well, did I? All right, so you'll end up with a circle that looks like that, okay? And then you just kind of take it and you lay it on the table and you just kind of squish it down so that you have your rosette shape, okay? Now this is the tricky part. You can hold it with your fingers, or you can do sometimes what I do, and depending on the size of my rosette, sometimes what I'll do is I'll use my scoreboard because it does have edges and squish it down, okay? And then have my scoreboard kind of help me hold it in place on the sides there. And then you have to be very careful because you don't want to burn yourself. I have burnt myself. I'm speaking from experience here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some glue around that center there. And then I'm going to grab one of my little pieces here. I'm going to put that down there. And then I've got this little thing that I'm just going to kind of hold it down because the glue is hot. I don't want to burn myself. And just kind of glue that down. All right. And then once I do that, of course I've got little glue pieces all over, then turn it over very carefully. And then we're going to do it again on the other side. And that will help stabilize this. And then you can decorate this bad boy any way you want. So if you're working on a project where you're going to be having a lot of rosettes, you can kind of build these and then put them off to the side and then come back and then, you know, decorate them later. Okay. So that's basically how I do this. Okay. And then, you have a very nice, stable rosette to play with, okay? So there's one strip, okay? Let's talk about adding two strips together. So let us cut a couple more pieces here real quick. Now, let's say I'm going to do another inch wide rosette. And I'm going to use two strips because I want to bulk it up a little bit. So I'm going to cut a 2-inch strip to start, okay? I want two strips at 1 inch, but I'm going to cut a 2-inch wide piece. And here's why we're going to do that. Because now I only have to score once instead of score twice, okay? So instead of scoring 2 individual strips, I can score this once and then just cut it. So again, I'm going to go in and I'm going to start at the half and do my score, and then I'm going to move to 1.5 inches, 2.5 inches, 3.5 inches, 4.5 inches. And again, this is for 1/2 inch scores, okay? So I'm just going on the halves here. All right, and then I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to score at 1. and 2, and so on. So I end up with 1/2 inch scores all the way across, and they're all going in the direction I want them to go. All right. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut this strip in half. Okay. So I wanted 1 inch wide, but we're going to add 2 strips together to kind of bulk it up a little bit. I'm just going to cut that bad boy in half, and then now I have my 2 strips. It's easier to cut them before you fold them, because once you fold this, then it's going to get a little wonky and it can warp when you try to lay it down to cut it. So I always cut before I do my folding. Okay, so I have my little piece. So there's one. Let's make the other. Okay. It's easier to fold 1/2 inch strips too, by the way. 1/4 inch strips gets a little bit tricky just because they're smaller. But there you go. So we have our 2 strips. Now we're going to add them together. Now I wanted to show you, so this one here, when we joined the circles together, we did that. So we basically just attached it, just kind of put the mountain right on top of the mountain and glued it down. There's another way that you can do this. Now, if you're using paper that is, you know, the same on front and back, like this one, white on both sides, you can attach them like this as well, and it gives you just one more little pleat that you can use. So I wanted to share that with you too. So instead of doing this, if your paper is same on the both sides, you can do it like this as well. So let's go ahead and just do it that way so I could show you. That's the other way to actually attach them. All right. But again, the paper has to be the same on both sides, unless you're doing more strips and you want to do something funky. So there we go. So that'll be attached the same way on both sides. Okay. So you just have to put the glue on the one piece, and then it will tuck underneath that mountain. Okay. And then there you go. Okay. So then again, you just kind of have to squish it down. Okay. And get it to where you like it, and hold it, and be very careful with your hot glue. All right. And hopefully, I have burnt myself pretty darn bad with this. And I don't want to do that again. That's for sure. Okay. So then I'm going to use my little thing here. This is a tool that I made for myself after seeing something that Tammy from Country Craft Creations had. And I just took some dowels and I wrapped them with fabric tape. And then I put one of those furniture pads on the bottom, and it works really good for like getting inside boxes to glue tabs down and things, but it also works really good for holding these down. Okay. So again, if I'm just doing a straight rosette that I'm going to like decorate with, you know, some papers or whatever, make an ornament out of it or whatever, then this is what I'm doing. So I'm actually, you know, just kind of stabilizing it at this point, and then this will be all covered up. Okay. All right. So then you can see, just adding that one strip, we've got the same width. We scored it the same, but it makes a nice and more full rosette. Okay. So then what I was going to share with you again is that when you're going to do, let's say like we wanted to do like a whole ton of rosettes that are scored the same, maybe making different sizes. Like for example, when I was making all of my examples, okay, I knew I was going to do a bunch that were 1/4 inch wide, and I was just going to cut the strips in different widths. You can take your whole piece of paper and again score the whole thing and then cut them up to whatever size you want. So for this one here, let's talk about, so if you were going to do 1/4 inch scores, you would start at 1/4 inch, okay, just like we did with the half, and then just skip a 1/4 inch and then do the next one. So you would do it the 1/4 and then at the 3/4, 1/4, 3/4, and so on across. For the 3/8, again, you would start at the 3/8 inch mark and you would do your score and then count over 3/4 of an inch. Now the 3/8 is a little tricky, and in order to make sure that I don't mess it up, I would count that. So I would start at like 3/8 and then I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because you want to go 6/8 and do your next one. And then when you flip it over, you would start in between those score lines at 6/8, okay, or 3/4, and then you would go across the paper. I hope that makes sense. And then once you get all the scoring done, then you can cut this in individual strips. So if you're using, you know, like one piece of paper and you want to make a bunch of different ones with the same scoring, then you could take your whole piece of paper, score it all, and then cut it, okay? Don't fold it before you cut it. That's what I wanted to tell you, and that's what I showed you with this one. So that is something I wanted to share with you. So now let's talk about, what was the next thing I wanted to talk about? I did that. I talked about that. You can use art glitter glue if you want to put your rosettes together, but again, you would have to kind of hold those pieces a little bit longer. So when you put art glitter glue here and use your dot, you'd have to hold it for a little bit. Art glitter glue does set fast, and it doesn't burn your fingers, obviously, but you're going to have to hold it a little bit longer, okay? So that's why if I'm making these, a lot of times what I'll do is use my hot glue gun, and it is hot, so that's why I have to use this, but it does set a little bit faster and you don't have to hold it quite as long, okay? So there's that. Now, let's do some pretties. Let me see here. Oh, I was going to show you, this is what I was going to show you. So, and some of these that I've done, I have actually used buttons in the centers, and I showed you that before. So I have like a ton of buttons. This isn't even like close to what I have, but I have a ton of buttons that you can use as centers for the rosettes, and you do not have to cut the shanks off. And let me show you how to go about doing that. So I'm just going to pick that button for giggles, and let's go ahead. And since we kind of talked about 3/8 inch scores, let's just go ahead and do that just so I can demonstrate that, because it is a little bit odd. But you'll start at 3/8 inch and you'll score all the way down, and then you'll count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would be 1 1/8 inch, and score down, and then you go all the way across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and go across. Okay, so we're gonna do that real quick. 6. And sometimes, you know, you get into a groove and you get a mantra going on. And then sometimes, like, you have to count. And I will have to count this out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll score all the way down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the way across. And we'll do that. So we're going to go all the way across here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this one should line up there. And here, I'm kind of speeding up a little bit. You can sometimes kind of eyeball it too, if you're good at that, but I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so this is 3/8 inch scores. We're going to turn it over, and then here basically you just go in between. We're going to start at 3/4, and then we'll do it at the 1 1/2, 2 1/4, and so on. We're going to go ahead and just score in between those score lines, and I'm kind of looking at my score lines and where the the halfway mark is, and just doing that. 3/8 will go across this perfectly. Okay, so 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, they go across your 12-inch paper perfectly. Now you can make rosettes with smaller lengths of strips, so like less than 1/2 inch if you want, but you may have to, you know, add strips together. Okay, so we have our score lines, And let's make this one a little bit bigger. Let's just, for giggles, make it 1.5 inches. So we're gonna do 2 strips at 1.5. Okay, so that's, you have this left over ready to go for other sizes. 2 strips at 1.5. And I'm gonna dump everything and make a mess because that's what I do. And I'm gonna put this over here. And we'll go ahead and fold our strip. And again, you know, however the folding is easier for you, just make sure you're, as they say, you're scoring valleys become mountains and your mountains become valleys. And that's how you fold it. Okay, and then I'm just gathering that up and squishing it together and doing my rosette here, or doing my accordion, I guess you could say. All right, so, and again, however it's easier for you to do it. And like I said, sometimes what I'll do is I will put it on the table and do it like this. Okay, so however it works out, depending on the strips that you're using. Okay. And I hope this tutorial isn't, you know, is helpful. I'm trying really hard to make it helpful. I had a lot of questions about making my rosettes because I've been kind of in a rosette craze lately. And I just really want to make sure that, you know, it makes sense. If you have any other further questions, let me know. I'm just going to glue that together. I just did the mountain gluing just fine. Okay, so I'm just gonna whoop, and I'm gonna dump my glue gun over. Okay, so I'm using art glitter glue to attach the circles, but I will use my hot glue gun to make the rosette. Okay, so I've got my piece in my circle, and then I'm going to fold it down. And actually, I want to make sure that I do the back first. So when you squish your circles together, the more paper you have, the more of a hole you're going to have in the middle. And that is really good for putting the button shanks in. So what I'm going to do, this is the back side of my rosette. Put my hot glue on there. And I'm going to put that on there, make sure it's nice and squished. And hold that down, give it a second. Now, while the glue is drying, you can kind of fluff this up if you need to. If you need to move your points around to kind of make it more even. Because sometimes when you squish it with your hands, you get it gathered up on one side more than the other. So you do have a few minutes, or a few seconds, I should say, to kind of squish that down and, you know, fluff it up a little bit. Then turn it over very carefully. You see that hole? That's where we're going to put our button, and that's where that shank is going to go. So I'm going to put some glue there. I'm going to put some glue in the middle, and then take that shank, and I'm just going to put that right in the hole and put that down. Okay, so that's how I did the buttons there. Now, if you wanted to put more decorations on here, you totally could, but the ones I did were small, and I just thought the buttons were just super charming on them. So that's how I did that. You don't have to cut the shanks off or anything, okay? So I did that. Let's talk about, where did I put it? We'll do this one. So I got a couple examples that I wanted to show you. So this one here, I have a button that I'm going to put on there, but I just went ahead and tied a piece of twine to it. So this is a button without a shank, and it's the same process. So I'm just going to, I folded this strip at 1/4 inch, and this one will be a little bit harder to fold. You just have to be careful. The paper that I'm using is Sweet Southern Mess by Country Craft Creations. And I just made this strip, which is, let me grab my ruler just to make sure, 1.25 inches this time. And I did 1/4 inch scores, okay? And I'm just folding that up just like I did the others, okay? All right, then I'm gonna set it down. I thought the kind of plaid paper was, woo! Yeah, and you know, you're gonna have some jumping rosettes sometimes, so you know, that works out just fine. Oh my goodness. All right, so gluing them again. When you're doing the mountain kind of gluing, I put glue on both sides of that little mountain to make sure that it glues nice and tidy here. All right. All right, so we have that. All right. Then we're going to squish it. Now I'm going to squish it on the back side. Backside up. I usually do the backside first just because that kind of gives me a little bit of a base to work with. All right. So I'm going to hold that down. And again, you can use your scoreboard to help you if you want. Just be super careful when you're using your hot glue gun. Don't burn yourself and don't let it kind of pop up because the glue will grab you and can hurt. And trust me, yeah, I know all about it. I burnt myself really good a while ago. Really good. I had some pretty major owies with that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about real quick before I put that button on the front is I'm going to want to ink this. So while this is kind of still setting, I'm going to hold it like this. I'm going to grab my ink. And I find it easier if you want to ink the edges of your rosette to do it after you fold it. And that's maybe just my preference, but I tend to find it a little easier to do. And then I'm just going to run some on the front here too. It gets the edges really nicely. And it works better. And I don't usually ink a whole ton when I do ink, you know, just kind of slightly, just a subtle inking, but that's what I do. So then by the time you're done with that, then this should be ready to go. And I'm just going to put a little bit of my glue here, and then I have my little button that I'm going to put right in the middle. And then I have this beautiful little rosette here that's all decorated and ready to go. Okay, so I wanted to tell you about the inking because I really do think that it is easier to do after you make your rosette and obviously before you put your decorations on. So do the back side first so that you have it kind of set and you can hold it in the middle while it continues to set, and then you can ink the edges. Okay, so I wanted to share that with you. All right, so then I wanted to talk about making a decorative edge, okay? So I have another piece ready to go, and I want to show you a couple examples that I made using a decorative edge. All right. So you can use any border punch that you have and create a decorative edge, and it doesn't necessarily have to, you know, match the length of your piece that you've trimmed. But if it does matter to you, then you can kind of play with your punches because every punch is different, and see how, you know, aesthetically you like it. This one was a really wide Martha Stewart punch that I've had in my stash for 100 years. But with a wider strip of paper, it looks really pretty and it looks really like doily-like, and I really think that that is beautiful. So there's an example. This one here is the same as this particular punch here, and again, it just gives a really pretty different look to your rosettes. So when you, like, for example, put like a little something on the inside, I mean, look how pretty that could look in your projects. So punching the edges is really super easy. So this is another different punch that I had, and then this one here is just a scallop punch, one of my favorites that I just did on the edge, and it just changes the look of your rosette. So the hint and tip for that is to go ahead and cut your strip. So this one again is, let's see, this is about 1.25 inch strip, and again, that'll matter it'll depend on, you know, which border punch you're using. Like this one here is quite wide as far as the punching goes. So this particular one, I cut the papers at like 2 inches across to accommodate the border punch, and it makes a really pretty big doily, kind of doily rosette. So anyway, cut your strip however wide you want your rosette. Okay, so you want like a 2.5 inch wide rosette, for example. This is 1.25 inches wide. And then score. So do your scores. On this one I did 1/4 inch. And then when you're done with that, punch your piece. That is pretty much the order that I would suggest you do that in. It makes it a lot easier to do, rather than if you punch this first and then try to score through, sometimes you'll rip through the pattern of your punch, and that's not good. So cut your strip however wide you want it, and then go ahead and score your rosette scores. So this one is 1/4 inch, so I went across all the way 1/4 inch, and then punch your edge. Okay, that's the order. So then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and fold again. Okay, and this time you just have to be a little bit more careful because you have the punched edges, and you just want to, you know, be a little bit more you know, careful with your folds, and just to make sure we don't rip anything, and, you know, your little edges are okay. All right, does it make sense? I hope it makes sense. So I'm just folding it just like I would with any other rosette. I'm just taking a little bit more time to make sure that my decorative edge here stays nice. All right. The edge punch, because I did my 1/4 inch scores first, the decorative edge will have scores through it, so it should fold nice. But I'm just trying to be a little bit careful with it. All right. And then I'm still kind of squishing it like I would normally. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach it. And when you attach it, now the decorative edge, you know, may or may not line up with your punching. Okay. And that is not a big deal, because honestly, you won't see it a whole lot once it's folded up. Okay. So don't worry about that at this point. All right. I'm going to put glue on here, a little bit on the edge punch there. I'm going to do the mountain thing. Line that up. All right. So then I have that connected. And then what we're going to do is, this is going to be my outside, so I want to make sure the inside, or the outside is, you know, on the bottom. So we're going to do it on the back side first. Now, the other thing that you have to be careful with when you do these is that when you're holding them together, you don't want to squish your pretty decorative edges too much. You got to be careful with that. So that is a consideration. And this is where probably your scoreboard will help you more. Whoop! I'm going to knock things over. So this might help a little bit more to help hold that together. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to kind of squish that down. I'm trying to use the edges of my board here to help. Back side is up. All right. Put a little glue on there. And we'll grab a circle. Again, this is like the back side, so this is going to be attached to something, so we don't have to worry about it too much, right? Okay. Hold that down, kind of fluffing it a little bit. I got one side a little bit more squished than the other, but that's okay. That's okay. All right. All right, so then we have our rosette with our really pretty decorative edge. I'm going to get this out of the way, and then we can grab our ink. So let's just ink the edges, see what that looks like. All right, so I'm going to hold it in the center, and I'm just going to go around my edges. All right, just a little bit. Okay. And then I'll go over the tops just a little bit. All right, have that pretty little rosette. Then you can put your little button on there. So on this one here, okay, so let's get the button in the right orientation. Okay, so this one here, I just did a little twine on the back here, and it's a flat back button, so I just kind of glued that on there, and then we're just going to glue it on top of here. So the decoration will help set your rosette so it won't, you know, come undone or anything like that. And then we're just going to hot glue that down, and I'm just going to press that down till that sets, and then we'll have a pretty little rosette here. All right, just like that. So that's something I wanted to talk to you about, is the decorative edges that you can do on your rosettes, and it makes them, just gives it a little bit more something something. Okay, so let me get these out of the way. Let's talk the folded edge rosette. So this is a fun little thing that I did on the book I showed you in the beginning of this video. I used this on the belly band, and what I really loved about this one was that it has these folded edges. So the edges on these are open, right? But these have this nice kind of folded edge, and it looks really pretty. And there's two ways that you can do this. So I did it so that you had this kind of deep center where you could put, you know, like a flower embellishment and kind of really tuck it in there. But you could also do it so that the center is completely, you know, flat like these. And it's super simple to do. And I love how that turned out. I just love the look of that. So now the hint with this one is do bigger scores. So I did 1/2-inch scores because we're going to have to fold these edges by hand. Using the 1/4-inch one, I found to be quite a pain. So, so I would suggest you go at least 3/8 of an inch score or a 1/2 inch like I did. Okay. So I have 2 examples we're going to do. Let's put these up here for just a sec. This one here, what we're going to do, and again, this is all Sweet Southern Mess by Country Craft Creations. What we're going to do is we're just going to do the one, this one here that has a solid center, so no divot like this one, okay? And I did one already. I cut my circles, and I have an embellishment that I'm going to put on here, and here we go. So I have my strip, 12 inches, and this one here is going to be 2 inches wide. And you're going to score, it's a 1/2 inch score, and we're just going to fold it like normal. So we scored it at 1/2 inch on both sides, like I showed you, and we're going to fold it, okay? So easy to do this. It's just crazy easy how it, and it looks so pretty. It looks so pretty. Then what you're going to do is, this is the tedious part, but it's really easy. It just takes time. Is you're going to, where the valley is on the front of your rosette, you're going to put your thumbnail right there, and you're going to fold that piece over. Okay, so you have that piece right here, and you're going to just fold and make a triangle, and you're going to do that to both sides, okay? Then you're going to, so that's this one, then you're going to move to the next mountain, and you're going to do the same thing. All right, so I'm just going to fold, and it doesn't have to be super accurate. You're just folding to that score line just to make that nice little corner here, okay? Depending on your paper and how it folds, you know, this could be easier, this could be harder. So I did it with cardstock, and it is a little more difficult the thicker the paper is. So I would suggest this technique for a thinner paper. So using like super heavyweight cardstock, it's not easy to do, okay? So you're just going to do this to every single mountain with the front of your rosette facing you. And you're just going to go back and forth so that you get a nice fold, okay? And we're doing it on the top edge of our paper. So I have the design so that it's right side up. You can see the little birdie and the little hearts are right side up. And I'm doing this just on the top edge, which will be the outside of your rosette, okay? All right, back and forth. And then we got this one here, like so. All right, so. All right, and then last one, we're just going to fold that down, okay? Back and forth. All right, so once you have that done, and again, this is for the solid center, you only have to do the top side. What you're going to do is you're going to fold that mountain, and then you're going to pop that one in, okay? So you're just going to tuck that little triangle inside, okay? Fold up the next mountain, pop that triangle in, and just go down and do that, okay? All the way down for our 2 strips, okay? And since I chose 2 inches wide for my strips, that's why I'm doing 2 of them. So it's going to be a nice, hopefully fluffy, beautiful rosette when we get done, okay? So when we get done, you should have a piece that looks like this, okay? All the angles there. So then just fold it up. Make sure all your little triangles are tucked in. Okay. You should have a piece that looks like that. All right. And then I'm just going to kind of finger squish it together. And then we're going to glue these together. Now I found the easiest way to do this is to get your strips together. And then this mountain will just basically pop over the next mountain. Like that. Okay, so we're just going to do it just like we did the other ones. I did try to trim these off and do that, and I didn't have like super good success with that to make them fit. So I found that if you just kind of put them together just like you're doing your other rosettes, it works out just fine, okay? So then I just joined my 2 pieces like so, okay? I'm going to do that to the other end. So glue on this, and put a little glue in that triangle to glue that down. And then I'm just going to pop that over like so. Okay, so now I've got my pieces joined. So I'm basically just, you know, fitting it over top of the other one. All right, so then I have that. Then what you're going to do is we're going to do the center again. So we're going to fold this down, and all your little triangle pieces should be popped in. We're on the back side. All right, I'm going to hold that carefully, and don't burn yourself. Put glue around my edges of my rosette. Here's my little piece of paper that I'm going to use. Pop that down. Kind of make sure that we got everything where we're supposed to do it. Okay. Let that set. Okay. Give it just another second. I let up a little bit and it kind of still kind of scooched out a little bit. It still kind of moved, so I just gonna let it set a little bit more. I'm gonna carefully turn it over. Okay. I'm still trying to hold that down, and then I'm gonna put another little circle over the top of that, and that will help kind of make it more stable so we can play with it a little bit. Okay. Like so. Isn't that cute? I think this is just a really cute way of making these rosettes. I just love it. All right. All right. So there's that. So then you can go through, you can ink your edges. Okay, well, I'm still holding this, letting the hot glue do its thing. throw my sponge because, you know, I got to throw stuff whenever I do my tutorials. You guys know that. All right. And my granddaughters, we talked to them last night, and they watch my YouTube videos. All three of my granddaughters do. And so I just want to give a really big shout out to all of my grandkids. To Cooper, Bridget, Ashlyn, Casey, and AJ. If you are watching this, Grandma loves you. How's that? They love my crafty stuff. It's really fun. So there's your rosette. And then I went ahead and grabbed that piece to put on top of it. This is a flower that I had made and I had left over from a project that I made. And I thought, well, this is going to work perfect for this project. So there you go. Isn't that gorgeous? So that is the center. That is the solid center. Let's do the one where we have the indent. So I've got another piece, and then I've got a dimensional flower because I really wanted to show you how it goes into the rosette. So on this one, what you're going to do is you're going to do that triangle thing to both ends. Okay, so again, I have two pieces of cardstock, or cardstock pattern paper. I have done my 1/2 inch scores, so I'm just going to fold those up. All right, and squish it down. All right, and then we're going to have to go back through and we're going to do that same thing, but we're going to do it on both sides. So I found the easiest way to do this is go down one length of this and then turn it and do the other. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go a little bit faster here and go through and do that. All right, so you just have to do both sides. And that's all you have to do. And we're going to put it all together the same exact way. You just have another little triangle that you have to deal with. I just think this is so fun. So fun. So this is just, you know, how I do rosettes. I just want to say that. This is my method. It makes sense for me and it works for me. You know, as far as like, you know, scoring a whole piece of paper, if I'm doing a whole bunch of rosettes out of the same piece of paper, that makes sense to me. Score the paper first and then cut your strips, because then you're only scoring one time, right? Instead of having a whole ton of strips that you have to score individually. That can make you crazy and make you not want to do a rosette. So I have this side done. Okay. I have that side done. Now we got to turn it over and do this side. Okay, so we're doing that again. So anyway, if you're doing a whole bunch of rosettes out of the same piece of paper, score your paper first and then cut your strips. Okay, makes it a lot easier. It saves time, and it's less frustrating than trying to score a bunch of different strips. All right, and then I score on, you know, the two sides. So I start my scores however I want. So like if I'm doing a 1/2 inch score on my rosettes, then I'll start on my scoreboard a 1/2 inch, and then I'll skip the next 1/2 inch and go to the next one, right? Do that all the way across, and then flip this paper over and then score on the other side. That way all your mountains and your valleys are going in the direction you need them to go. That does save your paper, because if you're using, depending on the paper you're using, you could have some tearing, and you don't want that. So if you have your scores going in the proper direction, then you will have less chance of doing that. I find it easier to ink my rosettes after I have built them, rather than trying to ink the strips, because once they're built, the ridges are up and they're easier to get to, and you don't have to do a lot of fussing. Okay, so those are my hints and tips. And don't burn yourself with your hot glue gun. That's a big, huge safety tip, and I'm sure, you know, that yeah, makes sense. Don't burn yourself. All right, so this one we're gonna fold up and then you're going to just tuck in both of those sides. Now this one's a little bit more tedious to do because we have to get both of those in there. Okay, so just take your time, pop those in there. Okay. All right, almost there. What else? What else are my hints and tips? If you're going to use buttons with shanks, just make sure you have a center hole on the outside of your rosette, and you can just pop that shank in there. And if you put hot glue in that hole, it will grab onto that shank, and then it'll also help stabilize everything. So it works out really well. Let's see. When you start your scoring, score on the right side of your rosette. So if you have a particular pattern on the paper that you want on the outside, start your scoring there so that your mountain folds down, and that's what you want, right? Okay, this is just going to, again, pop over and glue onto there. Okay, so we're just going to do this. What else? Once you get past 1.5 inch wide strips, you might want to consider doing 2 strips to make your rosette a little more full and not quite as flat on the edge, unless that is what you're looking for, is a more flat rosette. Okay. Let's see, we're going to do this edge, so we're going to connect that into a strip. What else? You can decorate these things in a number of different ways, and they're really fun. I particularly like making ornaments with these things. I just love making, I got to show you one I made. I made it with a decorative edge because I was playing with the decorative edge punches, you know, with prepping the tutorial, and then I made another little ornament. I'll have to show you that in a minute. All right, so we have our pieces connected. Again, we're going to do the back side up. Okay, and then, so this is what you should have. So you should have all these triangles in here, but then you should also have triangles kind of tucked in here. All right, and then again, we're going to add our hot glue around the center there. Put our circle down, which I guess I cut that one, but I grabbed the cardstock. But it doesn't matter because it's the back side, right? Now this one you might have to hold a little bit longer with your hands, just to kind of make sure that everything stays in place while it sets. Because you're only going to basically, at this point, be able to kind of secure the bottom side because of that kind of divot we're making, right? Because as you can see on this one, there's that divot, okay, on the right side of your rosette. So turn this over ever so carefully. Now when this dries, it'll be nice and secure. It will be nice and secure. All right. So you do have to give it a few extra seconds to make sure that that hot glue sets, okay? Then what you can do is carefully ink your edges, okay? I think I need more ink. I talked about inking lightly, but this is ridiculous, right? Okay. Now, if you do have a little bit of a tear or something in your paper, inking does help hide that too. So, you know, it can be something that you really, you know, pretty that you really want to do, but also if you have a little, you know, tear or something, then sometimes inking can help hide that. Okay. So, have our rosette, okay, the back side. Don't worry about the back side. And then I have this cute little flower. And what I'm going to do, it's dimensional, right? So it's kind of a thick, fluffy flower. I'm just going to tuck it right in the inside. So I'm going to add a dollop of hot glue in there. And I'm just going to press that into that hot glue. And that's how you can decorate. Well, maybe if I can get it deep enough. Let's get a little more hot glue. So squish up. And hold that down in there, okay? I've got to use enough hot glue. Yes, you got to use enough hot glue. And there you go. Okay, so now you have your cute little flower kind of in the indent. And you can use all kinds of different stuff in there. You could, use more buttons. You could use, giant rhinestones, flat back pearls, whatever you wanted to do. But that's how you do that particular rosette. And it just, I think it's really, really pretty. So let me show you while I'm thinking about it. Here is an example of what you could do with the rosettes. I love making ornaments out of them, and I'm going to be doing an Easter tree, and I found these cute little gnome guys at my local craft store, and I just thought these were really cute. So while I was playing with the edge punches, I decided to go ahead and add him to the center of the front, and I just kind of decorated with a few little rhinestones, and then these are buttons that I added on there, and I just think he's really super cute. He came with a string so I can hang them on the tree, and there you go. So that's kind of another thing you can do with them. All right, I think the last thing I was going to show you, because I promised I would do this, is this card. So this card turned out really cute. This is a, what is it called? What is it called? What did we call this? Or what was it called? I can't remember. An origami card? Origami frame card? I can't remember. Anyway, I'll figure it out. Anyway, it's a really easy card to do. I did it with some paper that I had from a leftover design team package, and then this was a printable that I had. And I just wanted to kind of use the printable to show what the inside would look like. But I used patterned paper on the triangles here, and I thought it was really cute. This is 4.5 by 4.5, and on the inside it was real simple. So I just wanted to show you how to go ahead and make that. So the base of the card is 9 by 4.5, and you're going to score on the 9 at 4.5 to make the card. You're going to need some white cardstock, and I'm using red and white from Country Craft Creations. It's artisan cardstock. You need one piece that's 4.5 by 4.5, and that's going to make the origami frame. And then you need one piece that's 4 by 4. That's going to be on the inside. And then you're going to need a rosette that's a 1-inch strip that's 12 inches long, and we're going to score it at 1/4 inch. And then you need triangles of patterned paper. You need one piece of pattern paper that's 7/8 by 7/8, and that's a square that we're going to cut into triangles. And then you need a piece that's 2 5/8 by 2 5/8, and we're going to cut that into 4 pieces into triangles. So let me show you all of this. Let me get this out of the way for a sec. So we have our card base. I've already made the rosette, okay? And then let's see. I need my triangles and my base. Okay, so my card base, 9 inches by 4.5, and we're just going to score at 4.5. And then we have a piece of cardstock that's going to be on the inside, and that's what we're going to write our sentiment on. So we're just going to glue that on the inside. Okay, so again, this is 4 by 4, and I'm just going to center that around. Now you can obviously decorate this on the inside, but this is kind of just the basic, right? Okay, so there's that. And then you have your 4.5 by 4.5. Now let's talk about how to score this. Let me grab my scoreboard. Okay, so on your 4.5 by 4.5, on the back side of this, so in case you're deciding to use, cardstock that has a pattern on one side or the other, pattern paper, whatever, you're going to take your 4.5 by 4.5, and you're going to find the center, and this is on the back side of your piece. Okay, so the back side, and you're going to make tick marks at the center mark on all 4 sides, and then you're going to take and line up those tick marks, and you're going to score. Okay, so you're just going to score that triangle, and then you're going to turn it. You're going to line up those tick marks, So that's the center of your sides of your square, and you're going to go around and you're going to do that, okay? Then what you're going to do is turn the piece over. So this is the right side now, okay? And where you have your scores, you're going to line up those scores, but then you're going to count over 1, 2, 3. So 3/8 of an inch, and you're going to make a score outside of that score line you just did, okay? So lining up those score lines, right? Count over 1, 2, 3/8, and go ahead and do another score, okay? All the way around. So you'll end up having 2 score lines, and they're going to go in opposite directions, okay? So you should have one valley and one mountain, okay, on all 4 sides. All right. So then you're going to fold. Let's get this out of the way. You're going to fold your score lines so the mountain becomes a valley, the valley becomes a mountain, right? Okay. And you're going to just fold that like so. All right. And you're going to go all the way around. So your score lines should line up, and the edges should line up, okay? Like so. Okay. Like that. All right. Just like that. So then open this up. If you have any pencil marks, I had pencil marks on both sides. Whoop. Oh my gosh. Okay, I had pencil marks on both sides. So this is where we're going to put some of our triangles, okay? So for this particular piece, what I did, this is the 1 7/8 by 1 7/8 inch square. So let me get this up here so I can show you. So I cut a square of my pattern paper, 1 7/8 by 1 7/8, okay? And then what I did was I cut them into triangles, okay? So I cut on the diagonal, and then I cut these into triangles again. And that will cover these particular pieces right here, okay? So I'm just going to put glue on here. Okay, and that should go ahead and make that real super pretty. And some of the, I've seen these cards out there before, and a lot of times people don't even do this. They just leave them plain. I thought it would be more fun to actually add a little bit more color to them, especially since I was using cardstock. So, yeah, I decided to do that. So that's how you do that. So this is the 1 7/8 inch by 1 7/8 inch square. All right. And then that will cover this perfectly. All right. Now you can put pattern paper on the inside if you want to, but be aware that your card is going to be diagonal. So whatever you cut out, you're going to have to figure that out. So unless you use some paper that doesn't really have a direction, but like on this one, I left it blank because I really wanted to showcase the rosette. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to take your piece here and you're going to basically put it on the front of your card, and it should go points all the way around the edge. Okay, make sure that I've got my paper in correctly, and I'm going to trim that because it's a little bit off and it's going to bug me if I don't. Okay, so we're going to just take glue on the back of this square here. Okay, and then very carefully, we're going to lay this down so that our points go out. Okay. And then this is where the 2 5/8 inch square comes into play. Because if we have our pieces, like if I didn't cut them already. All right, so 2 5/8 by 2 5/8. You're going to cut it at a diagonal into 2 triangles, and then take those 2 triangles and cut those. And then that's how you're going to cover the outside. Okay. So it doesn't take a whole lot of pattern paper to make this card. It would be a great scrap card to do. And then this will just go underneath here. Okay. On all 4 sides. See, isn't this fun? And then you don't have to do anything else. I mean, it's going to naturally pop up. So it's going to give that pretty, you know, 3D effect, which I think is quite cool. And it's simple. It doesn't, like I said, doesn't take a whole lot of, there it is. It doesn't take a whole lot of pattern paper. So if you have like little scraps, you can totally make this card really easily. And then you can, you know, of course, decorate to your heart's content or not, depending on how you, you know, do the card. You can use pattern paper instead of cardstock. And if it has a, you know, non-directional, you know, pattern on the back, you're going to get a little peek of that too. So, you know, there's just all kinds of fun things that you can do with this card. I think it's kind of interesting. So I like it. I like it. It's a little, like if you're like me and you save everything, then I don't feel like I've wasted any of my precious paper. Okay. So there's your card. Okay. So you can decide, you know, whether you want it open like this or like this, however you want it, but I'm going to have it open to the side. And then I made my rosette. So my rosette is, with 1-inch strips. So 1 inch by 12. And I did use 2 of them to put, or excuse me, just 1 of them, excuse me. And I scored it at 1/4 inch. And that's going to go in here. But I wanted to show you, so there's a hole in here. And I chose a button that had a shank on it. Okay, so I'm just going to grab my hot glue gun. I'm going to stick that hot glue in that hole. And I'm going to just pop that shank right in that hole. Like so. And then we can add that rosette to our card. Okay. Right in the middle. And you can kind of squish your card down just to make sure you're kind of in the middle. And there you go. And there's your card. So that's how you make this origami window card. And it's just a really cute way of also using your rosettes. I think this would be a great little card to put on a present, you know, that kind of thing, add to a gift. I think it's great. So let me see. Let me go over my notes here real quick. Let's make sure we got all of the things because there was a lot of things to go over. Okay. Before we get done, I did forget to tell you about how to make heart-shaped rosettes, which I have used in some of my projects. I did a project with Love is in the Air by Country Craft Creations, and I created some heart-shaped rosettes that I put on the cover as decoration. So I wanted to show you how easy it is to make them. You can make them in any size you want. I'm going to show you 2 different methods, one with 1 strip of paper and one with 2. And this is going to be super easy. So you can make them obviously in any size you want. The shape of the heart will depend on how you draw your curve. And this is basically a free-form thing. I do not have a pattern. I do not have a template or anything like that. This is a free-form thing. And it's actually very easy to create. So don't panic. What I would suggest is that when you're doing these, before you, if you want to make one for a project, do a practice one first to make sure you got the shape right and you like the way your shape is. Some people like more of a divot in between their little heart things. This one doesn't have as much of a divot. Some people want more of a curve down here. So just make a practice one. See what you think about the shape before you actually do it with your project paper. Okay. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to, for a smaller one, so for like a 1-inch strip of paper, you only need one piece that's 12 inches long and 1 inch wide. Okay. So I've got one of those prepared right here and I'll show you how to do this. It's super simple. I'm going to get a couple of these circles so that I can do them, but this will make a smaller one. This one was really teeny tiny. But you're going to need one piece that's 1 inch by 12 inches. And what I did was I went ahead and I scored this at my 1/4 inch. Okay. And then what you're going to do is fold it. Okay. You're going to fold it completely in half and make sure that the right side is out. Okay. So you're going to fold right in half. Again, this is at 1/4 inch. Okay. And, you're going to just do a curve. Now, I did this template here because when I did my hearts for my project, I really liked it, so I saved it. So once you get a shape you like, you can keep your template or make a template and you can save it and then you can just do it. But you can also just freehand do it as well. So if you grab a pencil, what you're going to need to do is at the fold here, and let me put this up here, you're going to want to start about halfway or so. And you're going to go kind of up and make a curve. And then down here, about the lower third maybe, you're going to want to do a divot, okay? And this will go up to the corner, okay? So kind of like maybe half of a fish, I guess you could, you know, think of it that way. And then just cut it out. Now you can also just freeform cut it, which I've done that too. So, you know, and you don't even have to follow your pencil line. If your pencil line doesn't, like, you know, kind of go where your scissors go, you don't have to follow that either. It's just, it's up to you. So then once you cut that shape, then you're going to open it up and you should have a piece that looks like this. Okay. And then you're just going to fold it like you normally would fold your rosettes. Okay. So the curve is going to be the outside of your heart. All right. And just fold that guy up. And again, this is the outside of your heart. So the paper you want showing is towards me. So it's on the outside. And that's where I drew my pencil line, on the outside. All right. I'm just going to do that like so. Get this out of the way for a sec. I'm going to fold it up. Okay, so you should have something now that looks like that. Then what you're going to do to connect these is you're basically going to take the two ends and just glue them together. So you're just going to butt them together just like that. We're not going to do the mountain thing. We're not going to do anything but just bump them together, okay? I hope you can see that okay. So you're just going to glue like that. So I'm just going to put glue on the outside edge. This is going to be the bottom point of your heart. And we're going to line that up and we're going to just match those scores and make sure it's nice and even. Okay. Like so. Okay. So you should have a piece that if you look at it from the straight edge, so this is the bottom, it'll look just like that. Okay. So you will have that piece that sticks down that makes the point of your heart. Okay, so then what you're going to do is we're going to turn it like we do all of our rosettes. That piece that we glued, that sharp edge there, is going to be the back side. And we're going to fold it together. This one's a little more tricky because it is shaped. And I'm trying to make sure that the divot of my heart here kind of matches up to where... and it's hard to see, I'm sorry, matches up to kind of the center point of my heart, all right? And you're going to have to just be very careful. Put your hot glue there. Put that down. Find my tool here. And then you can kind of press down and then fluff your little heart, okay? So we'll hold that for just a second. This should make about a 2-inch wide heart. So again, depending on how big you want them, how big your strips are. Okay, let's take that off real quick. Kind of glued my tool to it. All right, just give it a couple more seconds here. All right, and then you're going to carefully turn it over. And, you know, that's okay. We got an oblong hole there. It's fine, because we're going to cover it up with that anyway. Okay. There. No one will ever know. And look at the beautiful heart shape you're going to get. Okay. There you go. So that's how you make a heart. So this is, you know, again, it's free form. You'll have to kind of play with the templates on the shape that you like. Okay. And then what you're going to do is this little, you can see where we join those two pieces. There's that little point that kind of sticks out. If that bothers you, which it usually does me, then just take and snip that edge off and kind of just make it a little more flush to the bottom of that. And there's your heart. Okay. So now what if you want to make a bigger one? So that's where this particular template came in, because I've tried, you know, I played with this before too, and I saved the template in case I wanted to make a bigger one. So what you're going to do with this one is you're going to need two pieces, and we're going to make them a little bit bigger. So this one in particular is 2 inches by 12, and it says 11.5. Now what we're going to do is when we join these, each strip will end up being 11.5 because we're going to join the mountain to the mountain. Okay, does that make sense? It's going to in a second if it doesn't. So you're going to fold your piece. Actually, you're not going to fold your piece. I'm sorry. Take that back. Don't fold your piece. We're going to join this first mountain to that mountain. Okay, so you're going to just join your pieces. That's going to take a 1/2 inch off of each piece, and it'll end up being 11.5 by 11.5. Okay, does that make sense? So we'll just put our glue on that first mountain. We're going to glue it to our other mountain and create one long strip. Okay, so we have one long strip, right? And then we're going to fold it in half. And that will now be 11.5 by 11.5. Okay. And then what you're going to do is draw your shape. Okay. So again, I have my template here. You can go about 1/2 inch here, and on like the upper third here, that's where your point's going to be. And down here, it's going to be about your lower third, about, well, wherever you want it. You can do about here, whatever. And then you're just going to connect the points. Okay. So you can just do a light pencil line. Okay, something like that. And again, if you end up liking this shape, you know, if you have a template, make a template. You can create. It's going to be really pretty. Okay. So again, a lot. It's mostly freeform. Honestly, it's mostly freeform. So, and then I'm just curving down and going back up, cutting that off, and get rid of that. Erase your pencil line. Okay, so now you should have one long strip that looks like that. Okay, so then again, we're just going to start folding. Like so. And then when you do this, your center point of your heart that we folded this paper in half should be in the center. So you'll know that you have got it correct. On this one here, I did 3/8 inch scores. Just because I felt like it. You can do quarter, you can do 3/8, you can do a half. However long you want this. Okay. But this is going to give you like a 4-inch wide heart. So, you know, it's going to be plenty big. That's for sure. Let me get this out of the way for just a second. So you should have a piece that looks like this. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to just glue those ends together. Okay. So you're just going to match up those last folded ends. Okay, so you should have something that looks like that now at the bottom. That's going to be on the inside, right? So I'm going to turn this around and we're going to fold that down, and you can already see the heart shape taking, you know, doing what it's supposed to be doing, so that's good. And grab your hot glue, grab a circle, grab your thingy, and then kind of squish it in, shape it, make sure everything's in there. You do have a few seconds to play with it and kind of make sure that it's good. Okay, we're going to cut that nubbin off again. You don't have to. I don't like it, but you know, you don't have to. You can keep the nubbin if you want. It's all good. Whatever works, right? Okay. All right, give it a couple more seconds here. We're gonna gently flip it over. And again, the more paper you have, the more hole you're gonna get at the front, but that's okay, because we're gonna cover it up anyway. I'm gonna put decorations on it after we kind of secure it. All right, and that's how you make a bigger one. So again, the shape of this, so like for example, for this one here, I used this particular one for this heart, but I used 1/2 inch scores. So you can see the difference when you use a 3/8 inch score, kind of what you get. So you can play with that, play with sizes. I do suggest, you know, if you're doing something like this and you really want to make sure you got what you want, then, you know, make some examples and kind of keep notes and stuff. And that will, you know, help you in the future when you want to recreate. So then you can do things like, you could take this one and you could layer, you know, a rosette on top, you know, wouldn't that be cute? You could put, you know, some other pretty fancy button on here. So if you didn't put, you know, this center in, you could, you know, put a big button on there. You could do all kinds of things. So I just think that these are really pretty. All right, so I think that is what I wanted to share with you about rosettes. This is kind of the Rosette 101 tutorial on how I do things and, you know, what works best for me, some hints and tips, you know, what you can do with these things. If you have any questions, please, you know, let me know. I'm more than happy to ask or answer them. Like I said, I am not like, you know, the expert on rosettes. This is just what works for me and how I prefer to do them, and what makes it easy on me, and all of the fun things that I have done with them at the beginning of the video. You know, there's just tons of things that you can do. Oh, one other little thing I was going to tell you real quick, and then we'll be done, I promise. Okay, so you want to make a wand. Let's say you want to make a wand out of one of these things. Basically, literally, all you're going to do is you're going to take your straw and you're going to tuck it in one of those pieces on the back, okay? You can use a wand, you can use, or a straw, excuse me, you can use a dowel, you can use all kinds of different things. Pencils, I've used pencils, and then just glue it back there, and then you have a pretty wand, and you can, you know, decorate and fluff and do whatever you want. So, you know, that's one of the things that I did too. Making ornaments, again, you can layer like crazy and make some really cute ornaments. All right, okay, now I think I'm done. You guys have a great day. Have fun making some rosettes, and let me know if you have any questions. And as always, stay crafty and stay safe, and I will see you again soon with more tutorials. All right, bye-bye.